Hello chess enthusiasts, my name is Miha and welcome to my chessrealm YouTube channel. So we are in the round 3 of European Championship. Nice interesting game between Damjanović and Kacper Piorun. Let's see what happened. Damjanović had white pieces and he started with e4, c5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop goes to b5, and we have Nežmedino Rossolimio attack in the Sicilian defense. Pretty much standard moves followed. g6, white castles king side, bishop goes to g7, and now c3, preparing to strike the center. Knight goes to f6, rook to e1, black castles king side, and now d4, and white finally strikes the center. C-pawn captures on d4, c-pawn recaptures on d4, d5, and now e5. Now all these moves are more or less according to the theory. Knight is under attack and knight goes to e4, also pretty much standard move. White is preparing his 10th move, and I have found more than 200 games with the same position in the database, so this position is very well known. Knight to c3 is the most common continuation, but no. Bishop to e3 was played. Bishop goes to d7, and white has decided to give up on bishop pair, so bishop captures on c6, bishop recaptures on c6, and knight from f goes to d2, preparing to challenge this knight on e4, later also with f3, trying to drive it away, and black responded with f5, further supporting this knight on e4, and moreover threatening with f4, trapping this bishop on e3. Well, maybe still the best option here for white would be simply to capture en passant, but white saw the things otherwise. Knight to b3 was played, clearing the space for the bishop to retreat. Well, black has a slight edge here because he is fully developed. f4 was played, attacking the bishop. There's no point in counter-attacking the knight with f3, because then black simply captures on e3, even if f-pawn recaptures on e4, then rook invades the second rank and black is better. So in the game, white plays bishop goes back to c1. Now black continues with e6, and now white plays f3. Trying to drive the knight on e4 away, but black doesn't care and plays queen goes to h4, offering the knight. Well, the correct continuation here would be knight to c3, ending the development. Yeah, after that capturing the knight on e4 would make sense. But white took the bait. Instead, white plays f-pawn captures on e4. D-pawn recaptures. Black naturally is preparing this f3 pawn push. So white plays rook to f1, trying to neutralize pressure on f-file, and black pushes pawn to f3. Well, capturing on f3 is not the best option. If, for example, g-pawn captures on f3, then rook would recapture on f3. Queen to g4 is the threat. Let's see, after a random move, let's say a3, then queen goes to g4, king to h1, rook to f1, check, queen would recapture on f1, check, and e3, check. Well, white can delay the mate for 2 moves, but then it's all over. So in the game, white plays g3, keeping the f-file closed, also attacking queen on h4, and indeed if black would lose another tempo with removing the queen, white might consolidate his defense and would be better. After all, black is a piece down. So here comes another stunning, even shocking move. Black plays e3, leaving the queen on h4 at stake. Well, let's see. If g-pawn would capture queen on h4, then black would play f2 check. King cannot go anywhere, so rook would have to capture on f2. Then e-pawn would recapture, of course with check. King could only go to f1, and then bishop to b5 check. King could only go to g2, and then f pawn would promote to queen. Queen would recapture queen, bishop would recapture queen with check. Black would be an exchange up with bishop pair in a winning position. One of possible continuation is, let's say, king to g3, bishop to c4, knight to c3, bishop would capture knight on b3, a pawn would recapture, rook would go to f1, pinning the bishop. Needless to say, this is a winning position for black. Okay, let's go back to our game. So here in this position, white has decided to get rid of this pawn on f3. Maybe it would be better to do it with rook. After rook would capture on f3, then queen would go to h3, removing the queen which is under attack on h4. And white cannot remove the rook because mate on g2 is the threat. So maybe white would support rook with knight from the first rank would go to d2. E-pawn would capture on d2, knight would recapture on d2. Rook would capture on f3, knight would recapture on f3, and rook would go to f8. Yeah, material is equal, but black is winning. If this knight on f3 is removed, it's gonna be mate on g2. Okay, well, after knight would go to h4, defending this g2 square, black would simply play rook to f2, threatening mate on h2. So king would have to capture rook on f2, then queen to h2 check, king to e3, queen to g3 check, knight to f3 defending, and then bishop to h6 another check, king let's say to d3, and then bishop would capture on f3, attacking the queen with discover check. White is lost in all variation. For example, if queen to c2, then bishop to d5 check, king to e2 and queen to g2, and there goes our queen. Or maybe king to d3, defending the queen, but then queen to f3 check, bishop to e3, queen to e3 checkmate. Okay, let's go back to this position after rook to f8. If white would still try with bishop to f4 defending, rook would simply capture on f4, g-pawn would recapture, then bishop would capture on f3, and white would probably play queen to d2, defending the mate on g2, but then bishop would go to h6. Black is going to sacrifice this bishop on f4, deflecting the queen, and with all these threats here, black is simply winning. Okay, so in the game, white has decided to capture pawn on f3 with queen, rook captures on f3, g-pawn captures queen on h4, and now black plays e2, attacking the rook, also threatening to promote on e1. So rook goes to e1, and now rook from a goes to f8, knight from the first rank goes to d2, and rook goes to f2. And here there isn't much to be done here. After a random move, let's say a3, then rook would go to g2 check, king to h1, and rook to g3 check. White can delay the mate only for 2 moves, but then it's all over. Okay, actually white can sacrifice 2 pieces here with knight to f3. Rook has to capture on f3 and bishop to e3, preventing rook to f2, so rook captures also this bishop on e3, and now knight to d2, preventing rook to go back to f3, but here white is a piece down in a losing position, for example after bishop to h6, maybe a3, and then rook captures on e5, d-pawn would recaptures on e5, and bishop to e3 is checkmate. And realizing that all is lost in this position, Damjanović resigned the game. So I hope you like this game, I hope you have learned something from it. If you have any questions, my email is below in the description. Of course, I invite you to visit my Instagram page. That's it for now, and see you soon.